for having me, and thank you for this interesting presentation. Can everyone hear me well? I just check with the moderator.
Yes.
Perfect. Then I will share my screen. Perfect. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Dierick Frederik, and today we're going on a fascinating journey that will hopefully literally add some years to your life and life to your years, as we say a lot of times in longevity medicine. Today we talk about the power of muscle, a lifelong investment. Maybe a little bit background of myself. I'm a medical doctor from Belgium. I'm specialized in family medicine and sports medicine, and recently also longevity and of course the science of aging. So let's get started. Short question, you don't have to answer of course, but how many of you think that strength training is just for bodybuilders and gym bros or gym enthusiasts? Well, prepare to have your mind changed hopefully today, because I'm going to show you how your muscles are actually your body's best insurance policy against aging, disease, and mortality itself. So let's get into it. Let me start with a statistic that will grab your attention. So starting around the age of 50, we begin to lose up to 30% of our muscle mass, and by age 17, if we don't take any steps to maintain it. Our muscles are so much more than just for strength or appearance. Your muscles are literally the foundation of our movement and our independence. They act as a metabolic powerhouse, driving energy balance, supporting healthy body composition. Your strong muscles, they protect us against chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, osteoporosis, and perhaps most importantly, muscle is one of the strongest predictors of longevity, keeping us not only living longer, but living better. And some extra statistics for you. What if I told you that just 30 to 60 minutes of strength training per week could reduce your risk of dying from any cause by 10 to 17%? It's not a typo. We're literally talking about 10 to 17 reduction in all-cause mortality. And to put this in perspective, that's more powerful than many medications we use these days. And the best part is you don't have to become a power lifter or a gym bro. The research shows that even as little as 5 to 50 minutes per week provides already significant mortality benefits. That's less time than to watch a YouTube video. But let's make it even more practical. You might be thinking, yeah, but what if I can't always hit the 30 to 60 minutes every week? Well, good news. Research found that even doing any amount of training, no matter how small, gives you already a 6% lower risk of dying compared than doing nothing at all. So that's our second number. So whether you're lifting, training, strength training for 45 minutes, or just squeezing in a short set or two with some kettlebells, even those small efforts still move the needle. Every rep truly counts, as we say in the sports medicine, but your muscles and your future self will literally thank you. And so I ask myself, why isn't everyone doing this? Because we've been thinking about muscles all wrong. We think they're just for lifting heavy things, looking good at the beach when we take our shirt off. But the truth is your muscles are really sophisticated biochemical factories that influence literally every aspect of our and your health. Okay, now let's talk about the minimal effective dose or the dose response relationship. Or just the minimum effective dose for maximum life extension. And it's where, in my opinion, but maybe I'm a bit of a sports nerd, that's where science gets really exciting and very practical. Because the research shows that it reveals a G-shaped curve for mortality benefits. And what does that mean? So it means that maximum mortality risk reduction occurs at around 30 to 60 minutes per week. And so your benefits, they start to plateau after 40 to 60 minutes per week. So more isn't necessarily better. And other research also shows that like 2 to 6 sessions per week provide optimal benefits. So we're talking about literally 2 15 to 30-minute sessions per week. I mean, these times are so small. It's literally less time than most people spend scrolling social media during coffee or whatever, or sitting in the couch. And then, so we talked about the G-shaped curve, but it even gets better. The benefits follow what we call a U-shaped relationship as well. So that means that there's a sweet spot. So too little, you don't get the full benefits, but too much, and your returns also diminish. So it's probably the only time in medicine where we can say sometimes less is more, and we actually mean it. Now let's talk about sarcopenia. So sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and the loss of function. It's really a silent epidemic because it creeps up us very gradually, and it starts as early as you're 30 years, when you're 30 years old. But, of course, there's always a but. Resistance training is the kryptonite to sarcopenia. There's a super interesting meta-analysis involving 25 studies with a total of 2,260 participants, and it showed really remarkable improvements across all key indicators. So we talk about hand grip strength, so the ability to open jars and carry groceries in your daily life. Lower limb strength, so getting up from your chair and climbing upstairs. Your gait speed, so gait speed is walking with confidence and preventing of falling on the ground. Your functional performance, your muscle mass increase. These are all influenced positively by strength training. So it means that the difference between needing help to get out of a chair at the age of 80 versus still being able to play with your grandchildren on the floor, it's the difference between using a walker or still hiking in the mountains. And what the meta-analysis also showed is that the beauty of this resistance training, this strength training, it works at any age and any stage. So whether you're preventing sarcopenia in your 40s or you try to reverse it in your 80s, your muscles still respond. The research shows significant benefits even in adults over 85 years old. I mean, I get very excited by these things. Now, a second part of why we love strength training so much is the cardiovascular benefits. We sometimes hear the saying cardio is for the heart and weights are for the muscles, but it's wrong because resistance training is incredibly powerful for cardiovascular health. Also here, research shows that muscle strengthening activity reduce cardiovascular disease mortality also by 70%, like what I said in the beginning. And if we look at the mechanisms, they're also super interesting because your systolic blood pressure gets, that's the maximum effect of a reduction of 9.8 points. Your diastolic blood pressure gets reduced by 4.4 points. I mean, these type of reductions in systolic or diastolic blood pressure, these are associated with 20% reduction in cardiovascular events. That's literally talking about prescription medication level type benefits. So the strength training also, of course, has super interesting effects on your cardiorespiratory fitness. So your VO2 max will improve. Your classical 6 minutes walking distance will also increase. And of course, all these terms, all fun and games, but what do this actually mean? It means just better endurance for your daily activities, improved recovery, and of course, a stronger, more efficient cardiovascular system. And of course, if you combine it then with classical cardiovascular training, when you combine resistance training with aerobic exercise, like we call it, you get a 46% lower cardiovascular disease mortality risk compared to no activity at all. So it works synergistic. So yeah, I find it, again, very fascinating. Another very fascinating point is the effects of strength training on cognitive function. And it might be surprising for some people, but we used to think that aerobic exercise was the only way to boost your brain health. But also here, research shows that resistance training and specifically benefits the cognitive function in older adults. Again, a very interesting meta-analysis. It's 21 randomized controlled trials with a total of 1,400 participants showed improvements across basically all cognitive domains. So it improves the mini-mental state, so the MMSE score. The Montreal Cognitive Assessment became better. The Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, the memory scale, all improve. And again, these numbers, what do these translate in real life? It's better memory, improved problem solving, better focus, and just better executive function of the brain, your brain's CEO skills. And the mechanism behind it is also quite fascinating. You hear me say the word fascinating a lot because I'm quite fascinated by the science behind it. Because resistance training increases your cardiac output and increases your cerebral perfusion by enhancing what we call the muscle pump. So when you contract your muscles, you're literally pumping more blood and oxygen to your brain. And it's like giving your brains a better internet connection. So bottom line, resistance training doesn't just make you physically stronger, it makes you also mentally sharper. And then of course, the systemic health effects of resistance training. This is, I think, the most remarkable aspect of resistance training. It's a physiological remodeling effects that we call. It's triggering resistance training is basically triggering an upgrade of your entire biological system. So when you perform resistance training, you create what we call local metabolic stress. And this local metabolic stress, this triggers the release of myokines and hormones. And myokines, you can see it as the text messages your muscles send to the rest of your body saying, hey, we're getting stronger, you should get stronger too. And these myokines, these initiate enhanced protein synthesis. So building, repairing tissues throughout the whole body. These myokines also improve your insulin sensitivity. So improved insulin sensitivity, better blood sugar control. They activate your cellular repair mechanisms, and that's literally anti-aging at the cellular level. And then also the anti-inflammatory effects. With the anti-inflammatory effects, you reduce your chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation, as we've heard a lot before, are also linked to most age-related diseases. So it's like your muscles become the conductor of your body's orchestra, coordinating improvements across multiple organ systems simultaneously. And so if we also look deeper in the research, we show that resistance training improves your inflammatory biomarkers like CRP, C-reactive protein, TNF alpha, so tumor necrosis factor alpha. And so these systemic anti-inflammatory effects, these contribute to the reduced disease risk across the board. And of course, skeletal, of course, if you train your muscles, you also train your bones. So your bone density gets improved, your joint stability improves, of course. And of course, from sports medicine, we have our injury prevention. That's also very important. Now, I want to make this talk as practical as possible because we've had lots of talk today, and I also always like personally when we get like, okay, but how can I implement this new knowledge? Of course. So what is the prescription that you provide for optimal results? Well, based on a landmark meta-analysis of 25 studies done by Board et al. These are basically the numbers. So what you want to do is for maximum strength gains, and of course, maximum strength gains correlate with maximum cardiovascular improvements, cognitive improvements, like we said before. So you want to have a training frequency of 2 sessions per week. You want to train quite intensively. So you want to train 70 to 79% of your 1 repetition maximum. So your 1 repetition maximum is basically what is the maximum weight you can do an exercise just 1 time. And you need to do your training at 80%, 70 to 80% of that maximum. So say you can lift a weight of 100 kilos just 1 time, then you want to do your training with weights of 70 to 80 kilograms. So that's the training intensity. And then the volume is actually quite low. So you just want to do 2 to 3 sets per exercise. And every set contains out of repetitions. So how many repetitions do you do from a certain movement? And that's only 7 to 9 repetitions per set. So sometimes we hear, oh, you have to do 14 times and do it with 7 sets. No, the science shows a few repetitions, 2-3 times per exercise. And the most important time is the tempo, the time under tension. So how many seconds are your muscles actually contracting. And you want to have the time of retention quite long. So it's 6 seconds per repetition. So you can compare it by lifting a weight. Very simply, you lift the weight, but you do it very slowly. So 3 seconds up, 3 seconds down. And that's the most important part. And then, of course, in between sets, you rest for 60 seconds. And these numbers, again, might intimidate you, might look confusing, but in the real world, in the practical world, it correlates with 2 sessions, each session 30 minutes per week. So think Tuesday and Friday, you just 30-minute session Tuesday, 30-minute session Friday. You choose some weights that feel challenging, and you should be able to do just 7 to 9 repetitions. And the last 2-3 repetitions should feel really, really difficult. So you go to failure, like we call. And the most important part is you control the movement. So 3 seconds up, 3 seconds down, and you rest in between. And that's it. And so the beauty about when you leverage the science behind it, it's efficiency. So we're talking about 1 hour per week to achieve near maximum benefits for longevity, health, and quality of life. And then let me see what time it is now. Okay, I have a few more minutes. Perfect. We can make it even more practicable, more actionable. Because, okay, how do you actually start if you've never done strength training, but you hear all the time, yeah, strength training is so important. You have to train your muscles, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's actually very simple. So you start very small. So you start in the first weeks. So let's say month 1. So you start today until the end of November. You just do 2 sessions per week, 15, 20 minutes per session, and you focus just in some movement patterns. You train some squats, push-ups, rows, planks, whatever you want. Just you can look it up on YouTube, and just some body weight exercises. So you make your body used to moving and using your muscles. And the goal of this is, of course, to build a habit and learn some proper form, because when your form is not well, you have higher risk of injuries, of course. And then after a month, you still do these 2 sessions per week, but you make them a bit longer. So you go towards 30 minutes per session, and you start adding the external resistance. So you start using weights, some dumbbells, or you can start with resistance bands, or you just use the gym equipment. And then we start using our protocol that we talked about. So you do 2-3 sets of one exercise, and each set contains of 7 to 9 repetitions that you do very slowly, very concentrated, and that way you build your strength, and of course you build your confidence. And so you do that for 12 weeks, let's say, so 3 months. And then, of course, after this stage, after you've doing the strength training 4 months, basically. So what the first month is just getting used to using your muscles. Then the next 3 months will be about implementing the external weights. And then, of course, you start with optimization. So you do the same. You continue with doing 2 sessions per week, still 30 minutes. But every time you go, you progressively increase the resistance because you get stronger. So you have to increase the weight. And of course, it creates more challenge. You can add some extra new exercises to variety to prevent boredom. But now we're talking about optimization, and that's how you get into it. And you're started from there. And all this is the most important one is just consistent. Don't make it too difficult in the beginning with complex schemas or anything. Just 2 sessions per week, and do it for 50 weeks and build it up and have fun. That's the most important thing I found. And then, of course, if you think, oh, but I'm too old to start, research shows that participants up to 90 years old have significant benefits. Or if you have health conditions, okay, that's the reason why you want to start strength training, because to prevent or to manage these health symptoms. Or I don't have time. We're talking about 1 hour per week. Everyone has 1 hour per week. You spend more time waiting at the grocery store than you would be at lifting some weights. So some key takeaways that I want to give you, of course, is so the muscle strengthening activities, they reduce your mortality risk by 10 to 17%. You don't have to do a lot. 30 to 60 minutes per week is already best there is. You have significant improvements in cardiovascular health, cognitive function, quality of life, metabolic health. It's safe to do at any stage in your life, at any age. There is a minimal time, minimal financial investment required. The most important part is just the consistency. It's more important than having a complicated workout schedule or complicated whatever. Just consistency, weeks, build it up, and that's better than trying to perfect everything. And so, yeah, my message to you all is invest in your muscles and invest in your future, because it's the most important thing there is your health on when you're older. So what I suggest, your next steps, practical steps for today, is schedule your first 2 sessions this week, make a nice routine, and enjoy the transformational benefits of some strength training. You don't have to be great to get started. You just have to get started. So yeah, I think that's it for, yeah, this was my last slide. I hope I made it as practical as possible. There is so much fascinating science behind strength training. And yeah, I hope I convinced some people to start lifting a weight or to